Continuing on with the large intestines. Now I've gone through the entire alimentary canal from a structural standpoint and anatomical standpoint, but we've got to finish up a little more some physiology here of the large intestines. First thing is, what is the actual epithelial? We're looking at simple columnar epithelium for most of it. Except in the anal canal, we're looking at stratified squamose. Stratified squamose because at that point, the tube is a little more narrow and it becomes more abrasion. So if you're trying to protect the underlying tissues, hence the stratified squamose. All along the entire tract of the large intestines, though, we have these deep crypts. And there's plenty of these things because they're filled with mucus. The goblet cells produce mucus, making sure that all of this is propelling onwards without any problems. It's making sure all the waste product keeps on moving, so it doesn't get stuck or blocked at all. And then in the actual anal canal itself, you're going to have this superficial venous plexus. It's dealing with part of how the blood flows work in there. The only problem is, if it gets inflamed, this is what can cause hemorrhoids, because it's a very superficial venous plexus. All right, I've mentioned bacteria before. Bacteria grow in the large intestines, perfectly naturally. It should happen. This bacteria is being colonized because either you ingested it and it made its way through, or it's entering from the anal canal itself. But once this bacteria is established and colonizing in your large intestines, it helps your body out. It's meant to be there. We have this natural flora of bacteria living in our large intestines. It's meant to help with fermenting indigestible carbohydrates, because there are some carbohydrates we just simply can't break down. If you start thinking about a lot of times more the fibers, we can't break them down. Now, in this process though, these bacteria are basically getting fed off of what we can't use. They're giving off gases and sometimes irritations and irritable acids. Those gases, as we talked about, can't stay there, they have to be expelled. But the reason this is beneficial to us is because of the B complex and the vitamin K. Those are being produced by these bacteria. So therefore, our bodies are actually benefiting from these bacteria. We're gaining vitamin K. We're gaining vitamin B complex vitamins. So really, what are some of the purposes or functions? Well, one is vitamins, the B complex and vitamin K. But also, the large intestines is helping with water and electrolytes being reclaimed into our system. It's kind of a last-ditch effort to pull things out before excretion. Now, even though I'm mentioning water and electrolytes here, the majority of water and electrolytes are absorbed in the small intestines. The large intestines here is just picking up some extra bits here and there depending on how things worked. The main purpose of the large intestines is propulsion of feces to the anus. The whole idea is get rid of what our bodies could not utilize, could not use. So anything that makes its way into the large intestines, our bodies couldn't digest it, couldn't use it, couldn't break it down, didn't need it, whatever it is. This is stuff our body does not want, so let's get it out of here, get rid of it. Because you have to continually eat and ingest, which means you've got to constantly and continually get rid of the waste product as well. Interesting fact here, the colon is not essential for life. Technically, the entire colon can be removed and you can simply go on with your life at that point. Now, there are different medical conditions, there are different surgeries that require removal of part of the colon or the entire colon. If you remove part, the surgeries usually try to put things back together. If you remove the entire thing, then the small intestines usually gets put into the actual wall of your abdominal cavity and you end up having a little bit of different medical treatment there. But the idea is you can still function a relatively normal life. The colon is not needed to keep you alive. So all that water that's being reclaimed, all those vitamins, all those electrolytes, isn't really necessary. It's a nice benefit, but it's not necessary for life. All right, motility. How do things move? We're looking at the haustra. We're looking at haustral contractions. Now remember, the haustra are the pouches, the kind of outpouching of the large intestines. This is going to cause slow segmental movement. So it's that movement, that back and forth, back and forth. It's not a fast dump. It's a back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Slow movement, ascending, transverse, descending, sigmoid, all throughout the colon. And this is all in response to distension. So when things are leaving the small intestines, the ileum, and going into the cecum and the ascending colon, as that distends, it's time to start moving along, propelling it onwards. So distension is one of the key stimulation events. You then have this gastrocolic reflex. The gastrocolic reflex is kind of interesting because it's initiated by food being in the stomach. So once food hits your stomach, it's not in the intestines yet, the large intestines is going to react. So what ends up happening is food goes in the stomach, this gastrocolic reflex kicks in, and you get 3 to 4 powerful peristaltic waves. These are known as mass movements. What this is doing is saying, hey, we're getting food in the stomach. We need to clear out what's in the intestines, the large intestines. So these 3 to 4 different times throughout the day, you have these very powerful peristaltic waves. It's trying to take everything in that large intestines, push it across, push it down, and push everything into the actual rectum. So it's trying to clear out, make space for what's coming in at that point, because your stomach now has fresh food. Which means we are moving towards the point of defecation. Those mass movements that are pushing things into the rectum are going to stimulate the defecation process. What ends up happening is, again, we're looking at distension. If you notice, there's kind of a theme here. Distension of the duodenum, distension of the large intestines, distension of the rectum. Distension is going to be a key indicator that something has a presence of enough material to function. In this case, distension of the rectum says, hey, it's time to get rid of this. We have enough material to go. So this initiates a spinal reflex, the spinal defecation reflex. What that will do is send a signal up to the spine, and at that point, the parasympathetic signals are sent back down. You're going to stimulate contraction of the sigmoid colon and contraction of the rectum, because the rectum itself is going to have that distension, but there might be enough material going back into the sigmoid colon as well. So you're contracting both the rectum and sigmoid colon to contract, basically push things further down. You also then initiate relaxation of the internal anal sphincter. Remember, the internal anal sphincter was a smooth muscle sphincter. So you have to have your body saying to relax that. You can't consciously do that. That means at this point, only thing left is the external anal sphincter. Then you have to consciously open up or relax the external anal sphincter to allow defecation to occur. So the sigmoid colon, the rectum both contract, internal anal sphincter opens and relaxes. You have to consciously open and relax the external anal sphincter because it's skeletal muscle, and then defecation will occur. Just give a little visual of what that was. Looking at it again here. First off, you have distension at this point. Those signals are going up to the spinal cord. Once that signal is there, that defecation reflex signal, then the spinal cord is going to send a parasympathetic signal down. Heads it down to the internal to relax, as well as making sure that there's contraction occurring in the sigmoid colon and the rectum. Which means the last thing left is voluntary control of these external sphincters. You then voluntarily relax them, allowing defecation to occur. So a little about the physiology of what's occurring in the large intestines as well as through the defecation process.